New details tonight on an arrest in New York City. This after a young woman was killed last month inside her apartment in Tamarack. The Broward Sheriff's Office announced that the suspect, Sakina Thompson, is now in custody.
What would you do if you discovered your partner was having an affair? For most of us, the answer might be confrontation, heartbreak, or walking away. But on a summer day in Florida, a discovery of infidelity led to something far more sinister. When 23-year-old Kayla Hodgson opened her apartment door that July morning, she had no idea she was about to become entangled in a deadly love triangle, one that would expose how a broken heart can turn into a dangerous obsession. This is the story of how jealousy, betrayal, and revenge collided in the most tragic way possible, leaving a vibrant young life cut short and a community searching for answers.
What happened to her are tough to hear.
The caller says that there's a gash on the patient's neck. It looks like someone slashed her neck.
This is the tragic story of Kayla Hodgson. Before we begin sharing Kayla Hodgson's story, we want to take a moment to express our deepest condolences to her family and friends during this heartbreaking time. Losing a loved one in such a tragic and unjust way is a pain no one should have to endure. In 2022, 23-year-old Kayla Hodgson was full of life and energy. She was the kind of person who could light up any room, effortlessly bubbly and elegant. During the day, she worked as a flight attendant, embodying professionalism with her stylish appearance and calming demeanor, making passengers feel both safe and welcome. By night, she transformed into a popular bartender, known for getting people on their feet and dancing. Kayla often worked private events with a team of bartenders, where she was one of the most beloved members. Her infectious smile and warmth made it nearly impossible to be in a bad mood around her. When she wasn't working, Kayla lived in Tamarack, a small community near Fort Lauderdale, Florida. She loved nights out with friends, enjoying music, dancing, and embracing life to its fullest. Among her circle was 28-year-old Sakina Thompson, a nail technician from New York. Like Kayla, Sakina had a magnetic personality and a loyal clientele who admired her passion for her craft. Kayla often surrounded herself with strong, hardworking women who shared her love of fun and friendship. That's why, when Kayla was discovered brutally murdered in her Tamarack apartment, her death left her friends and family in utter disbelief. The devastating loss of such a kind and vibrant soul shook the community, leaving a void that words could never fill.
Elisa, thanks. And now to a tragedy in Tamarack after a woman is found dead. 7's Samantha Sosa is there live with more on the investigation and what we know about the victim. Samantha.
Tavares, good afternoon. The Broward County Sheriff's Office's mobile command center is still here on the scene as investigators continue processing evidence here. And now the Sheriff's Office is officially calling this a murder investigation.
It was immediately clear that this would be a homicide investigation. On the afternoon of July 13, 2022, the Broward County Sheriff's Office received a chilling call. By the way, we share true crime stories that are sure to captivate you. If you enjoy this kind of content, we'd love for you to subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep bringing you more incredible stories.
The caller says that there's a gash on the patient's neck. It looks like someone slashed her neck.
A neighbor had discovered Kayla Hodgson's lifeless body in her second-floor apartment. The scene was so horrific they could barely stand to look. In a frantic state, they dialed emergency services, pleading for help in hopes that Kayla might still be saved. But when paramedics arrived, they realized there was nothing they could do. Kayla had suffered multiple deep stab wounds, her body bearing the brutal marks of a sharp weapon. Most horrifying of all, her throat had been cut deeply from ear to ear. She was pronounced dead on the scene, and law enforcement officers moved in to begin processing the gruesome crime scene and launching a murder investigation.
Investigators continue processing evidence here, and now the Sheriff's Office is officially calling this a murder investigation.
As word of the tragedy spread, the tight-knit Tamarack community was rocked to its core. Kayla's family rushed to the scene, joined shortly after by friends, neighbors, co-workers, and anyone else devastated by her loss. The gathering offered some measure of comfort, as those who loved Kayla sought solace and closure in one another's presence. At just 23 years old, her sudden, violent death was incomprehensible. But mourning soon turned into a call for justice. Dozens of people came together, not only to grieve but to demand swift action from the detectives working on Kayla's case. Their collective heartbreak fueled a shared desire for answers, and they hoped that public pressure would help lead to a quick arrest.
You don't know if it's someone that lives here, or if it's someone that the person knew that lives outside, but yeah, it's definitely concerning.
Meanwhile, other residents voiced growing fears for their own safety. Tamarack, they explained, wasn't a place known for violence. With a crime rate below the national average, the community had always been considered safe, and the apartment complex where Kayla lived was regarded as one of the safest around. Violent crime was rare, practically unheard of, which made the brutality of Kayla's murder all the more shocking and terrifying. Imagine hearing about a brutal murder right in your own building. Would you even feel safe stepping outside? The tragic death of Kayla Hodson didn't just send shockwaves through her community. It sparked outrage across the internet. People offered heartfelt prayers for her family, demanded justice, and reflected on the horrifying reality of losing someone so young. It's a terrifying truth. Life can be stolen from anyone at any age, but it shouldn't be that way. Kayla's life wasn't anyone else's to take. When someone on social media asked how Kayla had died, two comments stood out, echoing the grim details already suspected by law enforcement. Some guy slashed her throat in her apartment, one person wrote. Another added, "Too many toxic males out there." It wasn't an unreasonable assumption. Statistics overwhelmingly point to men as perpetrators in violent crimes like these, often involving domestic violence boiling over or predatory attacks targeting young, vulnerable women. For a while, Kayla's case remained frustratingly quiet. Updates brought little more than restatements of old facts. No arrests, no strong leads, and pleas for anyone with information to come forward. Even her family, heartbroken and desperate, couldn't provide any clues. Detectives, following the usual path, suspected someone close to Kayla. A jealous ex-boyfriend? A rival? A friend turned foe? But their investigation soon took a twist no one saw coming. Kayla didn't have a jilted ex, but she was involved with a man at the time, someone named Terry. His reputation for a quick temper and toxic relationships made him an obvious suspect. Digging into his connections, detectives discovered something even more disturbing. Terry wasn't just Kayla's secret lover. He was also dating Kayla's friend, 28-year-old Sakina Thompson. Terry was a textbook player, and Sakina knew it. Her social media was practically a journal of their turbulent relationship. She shared videos of them cuddling, flirting, and fighting, sometimes within days of each other. One post might show her vowing to leave him, while another a week later would feature them back together. There was even a clip of her excitedly unwrapping birthday gifts from Terry, a public display that seemed designed to prove the relationship was solid. But the truth, she was likely trying to convince herself more than anyone else. On July 10, 2022, Sakina and Terry flew from New York to Miami for a night of partying at a local club. At some point during the evening, they crossed paths with Kayla. The three danced together for a while, but jealousy quickly took hold. Sakina's suspicions flared as she watched Kayla and Terry interact a little too closely for her comfort. Years of mistrust and resentment boiled over. Later that night, Sakina placed a tracker on Terry's Range Rover. Her instincts were right. By the next day, she had proof. Terry had driven to Kayla's apartment. He was cheating on her, and now she knew exactly where Kayla lived. When investigators reviewed Sakina's social media, they found more than just the volatile ups and downs of her relationship with Terry. There were multiple videos of her making ominous promises. She didn't just talk about being wronged. She openly vowed to harm those who crossed her.
You know that I throw hands, right? You know that I throw hands, right? You know that I throw hands, right? You know that I throw hands, right?
Still got one, I'ma smack the wig off, and then I'ma change.
Setting healthy boundaries and ending toxic friendships or relationships is one thing, but letting revenge and aggression dictate your life only leads down a dark, destructive path. Living in a world of paranoia, convinced that everyone is out to hurt you. turns life into a constant cycle of planning your next hostile move. Unfortunately, this was the reality Sakina Thompson lived in. Whenever she had a falling out with someone, she would vent online, making bold threats of revenge as though it made her appear strong or untouchable. But the truth was far more troubling. Sakina's actions revealed a frightening absence of conscience. If she had any remorse or empathy, she wouldn't have done what she did on July 13, 2022. Surveillance footage would later show her storming into Kayla Hodson's apartment building with a deadly purpose. She manipulated her way inside and gained access to Kayla's unit. Once there, she unleashed a brutal, calculated attack. Armed with a knife and another sharp object, she didn't just strike to kill. She inflicted multiple jagged wounds, ensuring maximum pain and suffering, before slicing Kayla's throat from ear to ear. It was a gruesome, deliberate act meant to leave no chance of survival. Her mission complete, Sakina calmly left the scene. Within the hour, she was back with Terry, and together they boarded a flight to New York City, as though nothing had happened. Nearly 3 weeks passed with no answers, leaving Kayla's loved ones and the Tamarack community reeling. Then, finally, a breakthrough. Law enforcement had identified a suspect, and on August 3, 2022, there was good news to share.
New details tonight on an arrest in New York City. This after a young woman was killed last month inside her apartment in Tamarack. The Broward Sheriff's Office announced that the suspect, Sakina Thompson, is now in custody. CBS 4's Peter O'Dinch joins us live from the Tamarack Village complex with the very latest on this story. Peter.
Well, Naja, BSO says that the suspect was arrested in a neighborhood in Queens. That was 3 weeks after the homicide here. It's also where residents are relieved.
Neighbors once again gathered outside for interviews, but this time there was a sense of relief.
I feel terribly bad that happened to her.
Shayla Hernandez was horrified by the murder of her neighbor.
The looming fear that a killer was walking free had finally lifted. People were grateful that an arrest had been made, but the identity of the perpetrator left everyone stunned. It wasn't some faceless man or a predatory stranger. It was a 28-year-old woman who had made a horrifying decision to punish her unfaithful boyfriend by murdering his secret lover. On that day, authorities arrested Sakina in Springfield Gardens, Queens. She was booked into Rikers Island without bond before being extradited to Broward County, Florida, where she faced a charge of first-degree murder.
Her life was gone way too soon.
Today, Local 10 talks to a friend of the family. Her loved ones remain too heartbroken to speak.
We love her. We miss her. We know we are praying for justice.
With the arrest of her killer, Kayla Hodson's family could finally begin to find a measure of closure. No longer focused on demanding justice, they could instead shift their energy toward remembering and celebrating the vibrant, kind-hearted woman Kayla had been. To help with funeral expenses, the Hodson family launched a GoFundMe campaign. Kayla's impact on her loved ones was immeasurable. She was a cherished daughter, an adored big sister, and a beloved niece, granddaughter, and cousin. Her bond with family was unmatched. The story of her senseless death touched even those who had never met her. Social media flooded with messages of sympathy and heartbreak. One comment on her Instagram read, "This beautiful baby didn't deserve that. Her story really pains my heart." The collective grief spoke volumes about the depth of the tragedy. Meanwhile, Sakina Thompson remained in custody at the North Broward Bureau Jail, with her bond denied. Her crime had been so cold-blooded, so extreme, that the court declared her a significant danger to society. It was clear she would likely never walk free again. But Sakina's story took another dramatic turn while she was behind bars. She discovered she was pregnant. Far from being a moment of joy, this revelation became a tool she tried to wield in a desperate bid for leniency. In a handwritten letter to Judge Casey, she pleaded for mercy. "Your Honorable Judge Casey, I'm writing this letter to you in hope of finding mercy from the court to allow me to give birth outside of jail while also fighting my case." The irony of her appeal was not lost on anyone. Mercy, sympathy, these were qualities Sakina had utterly failed to show when she brutally took Kayla's life. Her request for compassion felt bitterly hollow. Even more troubling, she hadn't targeted her unfaithful boyfriend, Terry. She had gone after Kayla, a woman who may not have even known Sakina existed. With the on and off nature of Terry and Sakina's tumultuous relationship, it's entirely possible he had led Kayla to believe he was single. Their relationship status was so unclear that even they might not have been on the same page. Public reaction to her plea was swift and harsh. One commenter summed up the sentiment with biting simplicity. "She's pregnant now and wants the judge to release her. Girl, bye." While Sakina's letter earned no sympathy, Kayla's family continued to honor her memory. They organized candlelight vigils, released balloons into the sky, and encouraged others to keep Kayla's spirit alive in their hearts. Their unwavering love reminded everyone of the bright, beautiful soul the world had lost too soon.
Ready? 1,
2, 3. This is often how stories like these unfold. The one who was tragically lost is honored and remembered, while their heartbreaking story becomes a lesson to raise awareness. Families establish foundations, launch websites in their name, and create lasting memorials. Meanwhile, their cold-hearted killer fades into obscurity behind bars, no matter how much attention they try to draw. In Sakina Thompson's case, her desperate pleas for mercy fell on deaf ears. The judge overseeing her case was unmoved by her pregnancy and deeply disturbed by her actions. They made it clear she would not be walking free anytime soon. Her bond was denied, and she would remain in custody, at least until her trial. Speaking of her trial, there have been no significant updates since late 2022. Sakina remains in a Florida prison, likely working closely with her defense team to fight for a lighter sentence. But how can anyone expect leniency for such a ruthless act? Taking a life with deliberate cruelty leaves little room for sympathy in a court of law. If history is any guide, Sakina's defense will likely attempt to shift some of the blame onto her ex-boyfriend, Terry. His Range Rover was still parked outside Kayla's apartment complex when authorities discovered her body, raising questions about his whereabouts at the time of the murder. Given his history of toxic behavior, her lawyers may try to use this to paint Sakina as a victim of circumstance rather than the mastermind of a brutal killing. Justice, as always, takes time. It could be years before her trial concludes and a final sentence is handed down. Kayla's family holds out hope that the courts will deliver the justice they deserve, ensuring that Sakina spends the rest of her life behind bars. The thought of someone like her walking free one day, still young enough to harm others.
Happening today, family and friends of a woman killed in West Charlotte set to say their final goodbyes today. The community coming together yesterday for a candlelight vigil to remember Tyra Crosby. CMPD says Stephanie Alexander came home and killed Crosby.
Charlotte 911, do you need police, fire, or medic?
I need police. Somebody just been in my house. I came home and I had a woman in my house, and I pulled out my gun and and she's not moving.
How old is she?
I have no idea. I don't even know the woman. She's inside my house in the hallway on the floor.
Is she flat on her back?
No, she's on her stomach. I can try to move her on her back. My husband told me don't touch her. Oh God, what did I do?
In the early hours of July 18th, 2023, a married woman walked in on a scene that would change everything. 25-year-old Tyra Chanel Crosby was in bed with her 50-year-old husband. The sight was nothing short of shocking, an unimaginable moment unfolding within the walls of their home. Tyra, a young woman vibrant with life, had no idea the man who invited her there was married. Tragically, this unexpected encounter would lead to her becoming the victim of a horrific crime. Tyra's mother later shared the heartbreaking story, recounting how her daughter, unaware of the storm she was stepping into, believed she was beginning a new chapter in her life. Instead, it ended in a fatal turn of events she could never have foreseen.
Lured to a home and brutally beaten, and she was invited there. She did not just pop up there. She was not an intruder. She was invited there.
The married woman, however, was beyond reasoning, and what she did to Tyra in that fateful moment would alter lives forever. Before we begin the story, We want to extend our deepest condolences to the friends and loved ones of Tyra Chanel Crosby. This unimaginable loss has left a void that can never be filled, and our thoughts are with all those who knew and cherished her during this difficult time. This is the tragic story of Tyra Chanel Crosby. To understand the people involved in this shocking crime, let's see their backgrounds and the moments that led their paths to cross. This story will take us to Charlotte, the largest city in North Carolina, located in the southeastern part of the state. Known for its vibrant banking and financial sector, it serves as a major economic hub and is home to several Fortune 500 company headquarters, including Bank of America. Regarding crime rates, Charlotte has experienced some challenges with crime. According to recent statistics, the city's crime rate is higher than the national average. In 2022, the violent crime rate was approximately 7.1 incidents per 1,000 residents, which is somewhat elevated compared to similar-sized cities. However, it's important to note that crime rates can vary significantly between different neighborhoods, and many areas of Charlotte remain quite safe. Tyra Chanel Crosby was born on August 28, 1997, making her 25 years old at the time of this devastating event. She lived in Northwest Charlotte, North Carolina, with her mother, Tanya Hoskins. Tyra was not like anyone else. She had an infectious spirit and a heart full of dreams. Friends and family remember her as a vibrant, outgoing woman who always lit up the room. Yet, it was this same outgoing nature that eventually brought her into the orbit of a married family, setting the stage for a deadly encounter. Despite her warm heart and big dreams, Tyra faced her share of struggles. These challenges led to several run-ins with law enforcement. Her legal troubles began in 2018 with charges of simple battery and assault. By 2021, the charges had escalated to assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill and discharging a firearm into an occupied property. Additional incidents in 2022 and March 2023 involved simple assault and communicating threats. However, according to those who knew her best, Tyra was actively working to change her life. Her loved ones recall that despite her challenges, she remained caring and compassionate, consistently touching lives with her warm personality and genuine desire to help others. Young women her age, Tyra was searching for stability and love, but her troubled past often made it difficult for her to find someone who would truly accept her. Even when she tried connecting with people from different walks of life, she often felt isolated, leading her to live a single life and make personal choices, some of which took her down the wrong paths. Still, her resilience shone through. Tyra eventually met a man who seemed to embody everything she was looking for. They shared joyful times together, and she often posted snapshots of their happy moments on social media. This relationship brought her hope and happiness, but tragically, it would not be the one to save her life on that ill-fated day. Everything seemed to be going well in Tyra's life and relationship until she crossed paths with another man. They connected quickly, but Tyra had no idea of the secrets this man was hiding. 50-year-old Albert Alexander Alberts had been married to 51-year-old Stephanie Alexander for years. The couple lived together in their home in Charlotte, North Carolina. However, this wasn't Stephanie's first family. When they married, Stephanie already had 5 children from a previous relationship. Albert stepped into the role of a devoted stepfather, seemingly embracing her family as his own. Yet, his image of loyalty at home masked his actions outside of it. On the night of July 17, 2023, Tyra, an outdoor enthusiast, decided to unwind by visiting a local club. She went alone, bought herself a few drinks, and was enjoying the lively atmosphere. It was shaping up to be an ordinary, fun night out, but it was about to take a sinister turn. That night, Tyra met 50-year-old Albert Alexander, who was also at the club alone. Their connection seemed effortless. They shared drinks, danced, and had a long conversation. Albert appeared charming, and Tyra had no reason to suspect the truth about his life. Meanwhile, Albert's wife, Stephanie, a hard-working mother of 5, was away on a shift. Her job required her to work irregular hours, something Albert knew well. He was fully aware of when Stephanie would leave for work and when she would return home. As the night progressed, Albert extended an invitation to Tyra to come back to his house. Tyra, unaware of his marital status, accepted. It's unclear whether her decision was influenced by the drinks she consumed or the connection they'd formed earlier in the evening. To her, it likely seemed like an innocent choice to continue the night's fun. What Tyra didn't know was that Albert lived with his wife, Stephanie, who could return at any time. This seemingly harmless decision would tragically set the stage for a deadly encounter, one that would change lives forever. Later that evening, Tyra arrived at the Alexander residence, where she and Albert continued the interactions they had started at the club. The two eventually made their way to the bedroom. However, what began as a seemingly harmless night took a horrifying turn when Stephanie unexpectedly returned home around 5 a.m. on July 18, 2023. Bursting through the door, Stephanie was met with an unthinkable sight. Tyra in bed with her husband. Consumed by rage and betrayal, Stephanie allegedly confronted Tyra, grabbing her and setting the stage for a horrifying ordeal. Tyra, desperate and terrified, attempted to call her mother for help during the assault. Tragically, the call went to voicemail, leaving behind a chilling audio recording of her final moments. The voicemail, later recovered by investigators, captured the brutal sounds of Tyra being attacked. It suggests she endured a prolonged and agonizing assault before being fatally shot. Investigators described the recording as harrowing evidence, although its contents were never released to the public. The details indicate that Tyra suffered immense pain and fear in her final hours. At 5:21 a.m., Stephanie dialed 911, reporting to the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department that she had shot a woman she found inside her home. What Stephanie described as an act of rage would soon unravel into a case of shocking betrayal, violence, and loss that left a family and a community reeling.
Charlotte 911, do you need police, fire, or medic?
I need police. Somebody just been in my house. I came home and I had a woman in my house, and I pulled out my gun and and she's not moving.
How old is she?
I have no idea. I don't even know the woman. She's inside my house in the hallway on the floor.
Is she flat on her back?
No, she's on her stomach. I can try to move her on her back. My husband told me don't touch her. Oh God, what did I do? What did I do?
When officers arrived at the Alexander residence, Stephanie led them to the location of Tyra's body. What they encountered was nothing short of devastating. Tyra lay lifeless, her body bearing clear signs of torture and gunshot wounds. The scene painted a grim picture of the violence she had endured. Stephanie was immediately taken into custody and brought to police headquarters for questioning as the primary suspect. Her husband, Albert Alexander, was also interviewed, providing his version of the events that unfolded that night. Following these interviews, authorities charged Stephanie with voluntary manslaughter. She was processed at the Mecklenburg County Jail on Tuesday, July 18th, at approximately 6 a.m. Despite the gravity of the charges, Stephanie was released later that same day at 2 p.m. after posting a $250,000 bond. Meanwhile, Albert Alexander faced no charges in connection to the incident, a decision that sparked widespread outrage. Many believed his actions were the catalyst for the tragedy, leaving questions unanswered about his role in the events leading up to Tyra's death. Tyra Crosby's family, especially her mother, Tanya Hoskins, was heartbroken and infuriated by the circumstances surrounding her daughter's murder. In her pursuit of justice, Tanya submitted the voicemail evidence from Tyra's final moments to the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, CMPD. She urged investigators to reconsider the case and push for upgraded charges against Stephanie Alexander, believing the initial charge of voluntary manslaughter was far too lenient given the brutality of the crime.
Right now, she's charged with the lowest form of murder. I want it up to first-degree murder.
Tanya was absolutely convinced that her daughter's death was no accident. With unwavering determination, she argued that the circumstances surrounding Tyra's death demanded more than a standard murder charge. This was first-degree murder, plain and simple. She was adamant about one crucial point. Tyra was not some random intruder who had broken into the Alexander home. In fact, she had been personally invited inside by Stephanie's husband, Albert Alexander.
Lured to a home and brutally beaten, and she was invited there. She did not just pop up there. She was not an intruder. She was invited there.
This invitation, in Tanya's mind, completely dismantled any potential self-defense narrative. She was certain this was a meticulously planned attack, and she was going to fight tooth and nail to ensure justice was served. During her conversations with investigators, Tanya shared a heart-wrenching detail. On that devastating morning of July 18th, Tyra had desperately tried to call her for help during the assault. She was convinced the entire incident was a calculated setup, with Stephanie Alexander deliberately creating a scenario designed to end her daughter's life. Initially, rumors had circulated that Tyra might have broken into the house due to her past legal issues. However, evidence quickly put those speculations to rest. On August 3, 2023, the Mecklenburg County Grand Jury formally indicted Stephanie Alexander for second-degree murder of Tyra Crosby. This decision coming after carefully reviewing the voicemail evidence Tanya had submitted. Yet numerous questions still lingered in the aftermath. What was the true nature of Tyra's relationship with Albert Alexander? How long had she known him? Was she aware he was married? Had she visited the Alexander home before that tragic night that would ultimately claim her life? These questions hung in the air, unanswered and haunting.
A song of comfort. Candles illuminating the sky as darkness, the unknown, knocks for family.
On a somber Sunday, July 23, 2023, a community came together in a local Charlotte, North Carolina park to remember Tyra. The evening was illuminated by the soft, flickering glow of candles, creating an atmosphere of both grief and remembrance. Friends, family, and community members gathered, their hearts heavy with loss. As the candles burned, attendees began sharing intimate memories of Tyra, stories that captured her infectious laughter, her remarkable kindness, and the deep loyalty that defined her character.
We've got to come together more and reflect on our life and see what I need to do to fix in my house.
At the center of this emotional gathering was Tanya Hoskins, Tyra's mother, whose pain was palpable. Her voice trembled with a mixture of grief and fierce determination as she addressed the crowd. She made an impassioned pledge to pursue justice relentlessly, ensuring that her daughter's death would not be forgotten or in vain. Tanya painted a vivid picture of Tyra's dreams, the vibrant life she should have lived, the potential that was so cruelly stolen. Her words resonated with everyone present, highlighting the profound and irreplaceable loss her family was experiencing. The vigil became a powerful moment of collective mourning and support. Attendees offered prayers, shared tears, and extended heartfelt support to Tanya in her ongoing quest for answers and accountability. The next day, on July 24th, Tyra Chanel Crosby, just 25 years young, was laid to rest at the Greater Temple Baptist Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. Stephanie Alexander now faces trial for second-degree murder, a charge significantly more serious than voluntary manslaughter. This upgrade reflects the prosecution's perspective that while her actions might not have been premeditated, they demonstrated a chilling disregard for human life. The legal system seems to be acknowledging the gravity of the situation, recognizing that this was more than a momentary lapse of judgment. A disturbing element of this tragedy is the apparent role of Stephanie's husband. In a cruel twist, he appears to walk free while the consequences fall entirely on Stephanie. The unfolding narrative raises uncomfortable questions about responsibility, betrayal, and the complex dynamics that can lead to such a devastating outcome. As the community mourns and seeks justice, one thing remains clear. Tyra Crosby's life was cut short, and her memory deserves both remembrance and resolution. The hope is that through this legal process, some measure of justice will be achieved, though no verdict can truly bring back the vibrant young woman whose life was so...
The best mother that she could be. It's just sad because she doesn't get that chance.
A horrific scene in Cheverly. A mother and her sister gunned down with 3 young children at home.
And police say it is yet another case of domestic violence.
Is the suspect
in this double murder has been found dead, believed to be the victim of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He was found this afternoon in Hanover County, Virginia, not too far, we're told, from Ashland. That is north of Richmond. His name is Kevin Tyrese Reynolds.
On the night of March 7, 2016, a terrifying scene unfolded at the Cheverly Station apartment complex in Maryland. Police arrived to find 26-year-old Tarika Jones and her 22-year-old half-sister, Jaleesa Walls-Harris, shot dead inside their home. But the most disturbing twist? Just days before this brutal double homicide, the suspected killer, Tarika's boyfriend, Kevin Tyrese Reynolds, had been sitting behind bars on domestic violence charges, and in a tragic decision that would haunt her forever. One of the victims paid a staggering $20,000 to bail him out. What happened in those final moments? Why did Tarika make that choice? And how did this case take an even darker turn? Stay with me as we uncover the heartbreaking story of love, betrayal, and a crime that could have been stopped. This is the heartbreaking story of Tarika Lane Jones. Before we begin the story, we want to extend our deepest condolences to the friends and loved ones of Tarika Jones. This unimaginable loss has left a void that can never be filled, and our thoughts are with all those who knew and cherished her during this difficult time. This story will be taking us to Cheverly, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C. It is a community that has struggled with crime. While property crimes are more common than violent crimes, the town is still considered less safe than most cities in the state. Unfortunately, it was within this very city that Tarika Jones' life was tragically cut short by violence. She was born on May 21, 1989, in Prince George's County, Maryland. Tarika Lane Jones was the daughter of Tawanda Jones Reed and the late Terry Lee Walls. From an early age, she displayed ambition and resilience, determined to create a better future for herself and her family. She spent her childhood in Maryland, attending Calvert County Public Schools before graduating from Huntington High School in 2007. With a passion for education and management, Tarika pursued a career in dental assistance, enrolling at Fortis College in Hyattsville, Maryland. But her journey wasn't just about professional success. Her greatest motivation in life was her 3 daughters. They were at the center of her world, and she was determined to provide them with the best life possible. She took great pride in being their mother, sharing moments of joy and love with them on social media. However, there was one aspect of her life she chose to keep private: the identity of her youngest daughter's father, whose name was Kevin Tyrese Reynolds, a man from District Heights, Maryland, with whom Tarika had been romantically involved. At first, their relationship was filled with love and trust, and for a while, things seemed to be going well. But as time passed, things began to take a dark turn. Kevin's behavior changed, and what once seemed like a loving relationship transformed into a toxic and volatile one. Their relationship became riddled with frequent arguments and explosive fights, some of which were loud enough to draw the attention of neighbors. However, most of them hesitated to intervene, dismissing it as a private family matter. While their fights continued for a while, there was one deeply troubling factor that made them especially dangerous, one that would ultimately lead to a devastating outcome. The most disturbing part of it all was that these violent confrontations happened right in front of Tarika's 3 young daughters, girls who were far too young to process or understand such trauma. They weren't mentally prepared to witness the terrifying outbursts, yet they had no choice but to endure them. And as is often the case in abusive relationships, there seemed to be an unspoken silence surrounding the situation. No one spoke up, no one intervened. Women in Tarika's position often clung to the hope that things would eventually get better. But in her case, they never did. Instead, what was about to happen would mark the beginning of the end. It was a cold evening in February when Kevin arrived to drop off their daughter as part of their custody arrangement. He and Tarika had set up a schedule. On certain days, Kevin would pick up their child and bring her back. Usually, the exchange was routine, but this particular evening would be anything but. Their daughter, innocent and unaware, was about to witness a side of her father that she had never seen before. By the way, we share true crime stories and bizarre cases that will leave you captivated. If you enjoy this type of content, we'd love for you to subscribe to our channel. Your support not only means the world to us, but also helps us continue bringing these stories to you. At around 6 p.m., Kevin pulled up as usual. Tarika, expecting nothing out of the ordinary, walked up to the car to retrieve her daughter from the front seat. But what she didn't know was that Kevin had something else in mind. Just as she reached in, he suddenly grabbed her, yanking her away from the vehicle. Before she could react, he threw her to the ground with force. As if that wasn't enough, Kevin wasn't done. In a fit of rage, he charged at her again, picking her up only to toss her back down with terrifying aggression. It was as though he had made up his mind to end her right then and there. Tarika struggled, fighting to regain control of the situation, but Kevin overpowered her with sheer force. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she managed to break free. Like a wounded animal escaping the jaws of a relentless predator, she scrambled toward the safety of her neighbor's home. But just as she thought the worst had passed, she realized it was far from over. Shaken and still feeling threatened, Tarika knew she had to call the police. She reached for her phone, but Kevin, still fuming, snatched it from her and threw it away. Panic set in, but Tarika refused to let fear paralyze her. She managed to find another phone, and this time, she dialed 911. As the call connected, the dispatcher on the other end tried to get her location so they could send immediate help. But before she could respond, Kevin's voice erupted in the background, loud, angry, and terrifying. His screams and threats echoed through the receiver, making it clear that this nightmare was far from over. The dispatcher needed no further confirmation to recognize the severity of the situation. This was a crisis that demanded immediate intervention. Without hesitation, officers were dispatched to the location. Upon their arrival, Tarika revealed even more shocking details about what had transpired. According to her, Kevin had assumed she was on the phone with the father of one of her other children. Enraged by his own suspicions, he ran back to his truck and grabbed the handgun. Terrified, Tarika rushed to call the police. But just as she was about to make the call, something utterly unexpected happened. Kevin's mother intervened. It was almost as if she sympathized with Tarika's fear, as though she wanted to help. But instead of offering protection, she did the unthinkable. She seized Tarika's phone and ordered her not to call the police on her son. Despite this interference, law enforcement soon arrived, and Kevin was arrested. He was charged with first-degree assault, a charge that should have brought Tarika a sense of relief. But strangely, that wasn't the case. Instead of feeling safe, she found herself burdened by an overwhelming dilemma. Although Kevin had become a serious threat to her well-being, Tarika couldn't ignore another harsh reality. She was a single mother raising 3 young daughters, and Kevin, despite everything, had been financially helpful. The weight of providing for her children alone loomed over her, clouding her judgment. These thoughts echoed in her mind until, ultimately, she made a decision that would prove to be the most costly of her life. Determined to secure Kevin's release, Tarika went to the county court and declared that she was no longer in fear for her life. She insisted that she wanted the charges against Kevin dropped, requesting that he be granted bail. At the time of his arrest, Kevin had no bond set. However, his defense attorney petitioned for a $55,000 bond with a 10% option, meaning he could walk free for just $5,000. But the situation was far more complex than they had anticipated. Judge, presiding over the case, reviewed Kevin's extensive history of violence and read it aloud in the courtroom. His record included crimes such as destruction of property, first-degree assault, and even a weapons conviction. Given the severity of his past offenses, the judge was not convinced that a $5,000 bond was appropriate. Despite the push for his release, the case had escalated beyond just Tarika's personal situation. Kevin was now considered a threat to public safety, and if he was to be released, the court required a significantly higher bond to match the danger he posed. On the other side, Jaleesa Walls Harris was Tarika's stepsister. She grew up in Maryland and was known for her vibrant personality and unwavering loyalty to her loved ones. She shared a particularly close bond with Tarika, always standing by her side through life's ups and downs. Jaleesa was a kind, supportive individual who, despite her own life path, became entangled in the ongoing turmoil of Tarika's relationship with Kevin. With that foundation laid, Kevin's release from jail marked a disturbing turn in Tarika's life. The shocking reality was that nothing improved. In fact, things only spiraled further out of control. Over the following days, tensions between Tarika and Kevin escalated once again. The cycle of domestic violence persisted, and Tarika's family and friends grew increasingly worried for her safety. Despite their concerns, Tarika remained in the toxic relationship. She was weighed down by financial burdens, and Kevin's contributions to some of the bills played a role in her decision to stay. But what she didn't realize was that things were about to take a devastating turn, one that would permanently alter the course of her life. Just 6 days after Kevin's release, on the evening of March 7, 2016, he showed up at Tarika's apartment in the Cheverly Station complex in Cheverly, Maryland. What started as a heated argument quickly escalated, likely fueled by unresolved issues and the ever-present tension between them. Neighbors later reported hearing loud shouting, followed by 3 chilling gunshots.
Sad though. I felt really bad sleeping when my sister woke me up that there was a gunshot in the apartment. And when I woke up, they said it was next door to us, so...
It was right next door to you?
Yes, sir. I felt really bad.
As the confrontation intensified, Jaleesa, who was present in the apartment, likely stepped in to de-escalate the situation. She may not have intended to use force, but given Kevin's history of violence, any attempt to intervene came with grave risks. In a horrifying turn of events, Kevin pulled out a gun and shot both Tarika and Jaleesa. The 2 women collapsed under the kitchen table, their lives stolen in an instant.
And right now this hour, a horrific scene in Cheverly. A mother and her sister gunned down with 3 young children at home.
And police say it is yet another case of domestic violence.
Tonight, ABC 7 has team coverage of this deadly trend. Our Suzanne Kennedy is tracking the latest effort to change laws to fight back. We'll get to her in just a bit. But let's start now with Maryland Bureau Chief Brad Bell. He is tracking this breaking news and this latest act of senseless violence. Brad?
Yeah, Leon, and we've got some breaking news for you, confirmed just about a half an hour ago and first reported by ABC 7. And that is the suspect in this double murder has been found dead, believed to be the victim of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He was found this afternoon in Hanover County, Virginia, not too far, we're told, from Ashland. That is north of Richmond. His name is Kevin Tyrese Reynolds, and he had been involved in a relationship with one of the victims of this double murder. We can show you some video of this. This was something that happened at 10:30 last night. Neighbors here at these at the Cheverly apartments, the Cheverly Station apartments, heard arguing and then 2 sets of 3 gunshots. Boom, 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 boom. Neighbors ran upstairs and they discovered that 2 women had been shot and killed. Their names, Tarika Jones, you can see her in her Facebook page, on her Facebook photo, and her sister, Jaleesa Harris. Now,
but perhaps the most haunting detail of all was the fact that Tarika's murder had a witness. Her own child, one of her daughters, just 5 years old, was in the apartment at the time of the shooting. Even more chilling, this was Kevin's own biological daughter, forced to watch in terror as her father carried out this unspeakable act. The sound of gunfire prompted neighbors to call the police. Officers arrived swiftly, but by the time they entered the apartment, it was too late. Tarika and Jaleesa were found lifeless, their bodies riddled with multiple gunshot wounds. The horrific scene left an entire community in shock. But for Tarika's young daughter, the trauma of that night would linger for a lifetime. The police immediately launched a full-scale investigation into the double homicide, with Kevin Reynolds identified as the prime suspect. A manhunt was initiated, and officers scoured the area, alerting nearby jurisdictions to be on the lookout for him. Law enforcement officials were determined to bring him to justice. But what they discovered the next morning was something no one expected.
Detectives have spent a lot of time here today. Take a look at this door. This is the front door of the building here. Look at all that fingerprint dust there. Now, we want to share with you the identities of the women. We've just found out the identities of these 2 women killed here in Cheverly. 26-year-old Tarika Jones, the mother of the 2 small children. They lived here at this apartment in Cheverly, right off of Landover Road. And her good friend, 22-year-old Jaleesa Harris of Bowie, Sheep, Maryland, described here in the neighborhood as so close they were like sisters. Now, a week after, there was a domestic assault in the same apartment unit. That's according to sources. Residents we spoke with just moments ago recall hearing at least 6 gunshots at around 10:30 last night, one bullet piercing through a neighbor's wall.
It's really bad. It's sad, though. I felt really bad sleeping when my sister woke me up that there was a gunshot in the apartment. And when I woke up, they said it was next door to us, so...
It was right next door to you?
Yes, sir. I felt really bad.
I was laying down asleep. I heard 3 bangs. I thought someone was in the basement working, because they do boilers down there. And I got up, and I got my clothes, got myself together. And by the time I got my pants to put on, I heard 3 more bangs. Bang, 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 rapid concession.
Now back here live, when police arrived, they found both women already dead. Neighbors watched as police carried those children out of this apartment building. Detectives say they do have some strong leads, and they do not believe this was a random attack.
On March 8, 2016, just hours after the murders, police found Kevin dead in Hanover County, Virginia. He had taken his own life with a self-inflicted gunshot wound, using the same weapon he had used to end Tarika and Jaleesa's lives. The manhunt came to an abrupt and tragic conclusion, leaving behind a trail of devastation for everyone connected to the case. News of the double homicide and Kevin's suicide sent shockwaves through the community. But rather than relief, there was an overwhelming sense of sorrow and frustration. Residents of the Cheverly Station apartments were left deeply disturbed, struggling to comprehend how such a brutal crime had taken place in a neighborhood they once considered safe. Many neighbors expressed their heartbreak.
She wanted to make something out of herself, 27 with 3 children or not. She still wanted to come out of poverty. She wanted to be the best mother that she could be. It's just sad because she doesn't get that chance.
Lamenting how little value some people seem to place on human life, Tarika was remembered as a kind, outgoing woman who had been working toward a better future as she pursued her studies to become a dental hygienist. Jaleesa was described as a vibrant young woman with big dreams of becoming a vocalist. Family and friends shared heartfelt memories of both women, highlighting their warmth, kindness, and the positive impact they had on those around them. Amid the grief, the community turned its focus to Tarika's children, who had lost their mother in such a traumatic and senseless way. The pain of knowing that one of her young daughters had witnessed the tragedy firsthand was almost too much to bear. Neighbors and friends expressed their deepest sympathy, doing what they could to rally around the children. Beyond the personal tragedy, the case also brought renewed attention to the ongoing issue of domestic violence in Prince George's County. Tarika and Jaleesa's deaths marked yet another instance of a preventable crime stemming from intimate partner violence. State's Attorney Angela Alsobrooks addressed the growing crisis, emphasizing the urgent need for stronger laws to protect victims of domestic abuse. But the question remains, who ultimately failed the victims in this case? Was it the system? The laws? Could something have been done differently to prevent this tragedy? It's easy to judge Tarika's decision to post Kevin's bond, but we must not overlook the emotional turmoil she was experiencing at the time. She had endured relentless abuse from the man she once loved, and when she finally reached her breaking point and called the police, the system placed the burden of a life-altering decision on her shoulders. Please subscribe to the channel to get the latest videos first. Thank you for watching another one of our videos. If you enjoyed the way we present these stories or learned something new, please give this video a thumbs up and share with your friend and community. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Your insights or experiences might inspire or help someone else. We'll be back soon with another intriguing story. Until then, take care and see you next time.